Hello there. I'm Hilton Dresden with The Hollywood Reporter, and I am joined today by the Oscar nominated hair and makeup team from Coming to America, which includes Stacy Morris, Carla Farmer, and Mike Marino. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Of course, it's such an honor, and the film was so beautiful. I wanted to start our conversation by asking about each of your relationship to the original film and how that was influencing your design choices as you began putting this new film together. So whoever wants to start.
Carla, you pick.
Okay. When I first saw the original, I was blown away. The visuals were spectacular to see the African American culture and the African culture portrayed in such a beautiful way. And later on, it became more special to me because I worked under Robert Stevenson. He's one of my mentors, and he was one of the people that were crucial in my career. So it's just been amazing to be a part of this franchise.
For me, the original Coming to America had a real influence on the work that we did in this one, because I remember when I saw it, I was in high school, and it was just so, the feeling that it gave me, that's the feeling that I wanted this film to give to others. It was just so empowering and bold and different and dynamic, and so the approach was to exemplify the hair looks and tell a story, and for us to show looks that have never been seen collectively in one film on screen. And so that was, the main goal. And just, it really was a love story for the culture, textured looks, textured hair, and just defining differences in character identities.
Well, Coming to America for me was an absolutely iconic, life-changing moment seeing that film. And I think Eddie Murphy was at his, the beginnings of his superstardom. And I was young. I don't even think I was 10 years old yet when I saw the film, which I had already saw Delirious and Raw, Eddie's stand-up routines, which are so dirty. And 8-year-old kid is not supposed to be watching that stuff, but I did anyway, and I taped it on VHS, which we used to have back then, and it was so funny, and I became such a big Eddie Murphy fan that when the film came out, even though the film is a beautifully constructed John Landis film, who was at his height at the time, the director, that was it's like a masterpiece of the timing of the directing of Eddie's career at the time, just the enthusiasm of the whole thing, and me being coming off of an Eddie Murphy fan, coming off of Delirious and Raw. It seemed like a dirty movie to me, which it wasn't. But when I found out Rick Baker had done the makeups on Eddie in the barbershop doing the makeups on him, I lost my mind. I became a huge fan. It changed my life, the original film. I was obsessed with it. I put pictures of Rick Baker and Eddie Murphy on my wall. It drove me and inspired me every single day. And I had the strangest little bedroom, and my parents thought I was this wacky kid. I'd lock the door, I had this whole laboratory in my bedroom, and it was pictures of Michelangelo's David, Eddie Murphy in a makeup, gorilla suits, just weird stuff everywhere. But it was vital in my life and my career, being such a movie fan and being such a fan of the makeup work, that without that film, I don't think I would even be here right now.
Okay, so you all just described how obviously iconic the original film is. And I imagine when you get the call to do a sequel to something like that, it must be really intimidating, and it's a lot to live up to. So I'm curious to hear how each of you, responded to that initial call and what goes through your head. And then what are the initial ideas that came to you before you even get, you know, the briefing from the director or what have you? What did you set out hoping to make with this film?
Well,
Okay.
Stacy, because Stacy was privy to the script for a while, she snuck it and I was able to read it. We both were. So we had ideas during Dolomite, to be truthful. And so she and I would collectively send images to each other of what we wanted to see in the hair. So those images kind of showed just not hair, but it showed landscapes and jewelry and colors and moods. And I was I'm a fan of the Afro punk movement. So I gleaned a lot from the images that I would see on websites and books and information on Instagram also of Afro punk images and that scene. So we put these images together, and when the film started getting revved up, then we opened those images up to the makeup department, and then someone else found out about it. So the production, set dressers, everyone was on our feed. Everyone gleaned from those images. So that's how we started the process.
Yeah, and I mean, you could say I'm a little presumptuous, but I work with Eddie all the time. And so when he's just talking, he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna come into America. They're writing the script, blah, blah, blah. I say, oh wow, sounds fun. Can I read it? And, oh yeah, I'll give you the script. You know, it's never a call like, hey, are you available to do this movie? It's, you know, I just know, okay, this is what he's doing next. That's what I'm doing next, you know? And so, like Carla said, that was part of the process. And, you know, once you get the script, your mind just goes. It's like, okay, what am I going to do? How are those characters from before going to be brought up to date? And, oh, we have these new characters. And what can I do with this person or that person? You know, it's just, as artists, your mind just goes. You just go. And then it's like, you got to hone it in. And you got to start figuring out your game plan and how you're going to organize and put things together and, you know, breaking down the script and things like that. And like Carla said, we had a little digital platform and everybody would just throw in their inspiration, their images and things that they saw, and, you know, having meetings and figuring out which direction we were going.
Well, I have to say, we are all really, really privileged. Working on films and filmmaking in itself is such a beautiful art form, and it inspires more people than we think. And I feel that making films and being a creator behind the scenes is so it's so important in the world. If everything was so utilitarian and there was no fun and entertainment and artwork, what is good in life, you know? So we're lucky to be able to put together a beautifully artistic exploration of cultures and colors and shapes and just cool stuff and fun and acting, and it's just a culmination of everything so amazing. So I'm just so thankful to be in this position, to be able to be at the best of my ability, as well as Carla and Stacy, to be acknowledged with the award. Whether we win, it, you know, is not the goal. It's really to be recognized, to be collaborators with Eddie, with Craig Brewer, with the filmmakers and the production team, just to be able to live a life, be creative, and do what we do. And Eddie Murphy's a dream to work with. He's amazing. And you know, following in the footsteps of Rick Baker is my, you know, waking dream come true. You know, so I was raised with film. You know, I mean, that was my church and my Bible, really. You know, it was really like my thing. It was art. You know, art was the driving force in my life. And to be able to be here now working on a film that inspired me from you know, before I was even a teenager is just, it's remarkable. It's amazing. I'm really thankful.
It seems like such a fun job that you all have. And on this particular project, such a daunting task. I mean, you're creating two entire fictional kingdoms, not to mention dealing with time jumps and flashbacks and, you know, Mike putting prosthetics on Eddie Murphy to look like several different, completely different people. So my question is, can each of you talk a little bit about the reference images that were inspiring you? I've spoken with you all before, and I know that there's some different historical context that each of you drew on in creating these looks. So I'm curious to hear more about the inspiration behind the look.
Well, for me in particular, we were witness to the original coming to America, and we spent a lot of time in New York and a small amount of time in Zamunda. So when I read the script, Stacy and I were both excited that we were going to linger a long time in Zamunda and in this new fictitious kingdom, as you refer to, not Nextdoria. So it was so exciting because we both love the culture, and this was our chance to really put together something, as Stacy says all the time, a love story for the culture. So that was what we drew from mostly, was the fact that we were landing in these two fictitious countries for the first time. And we were allowed to do what we had already had in our mind. Now, the problem was when we started filming, the production didn't know what was really in our heads. So I think they were coming from, okay, we've already seen this movie before. It's going to be a lot like the first one. So the budget for hair was not extensive at all. So with that, even though they were saying this, Stacy and I hustled before we went to Atlanta, and we got as much as we could. And I made things, Stacy created things beforehand, because we still was like, this is not going to take away from the vision we want to give to this film, but we just have to do more work to obtain it. So it was multi-layered. And when they started seeing things on set, one of the actors came to me and she said, Carla, I just want you to know, everyone is talking about the hair. It's the hair, it's the hair, it's the hair. And I'm like, really? And they're like, she said, that's the conversation everywhere I go. It's like, everyone's talking about this hair. And I'm like, great. So, you know, it was a buzzword on while we were shooting that people were very impressed, because I don't think, of course they didn't know what we had in mind, but it was impressive to the people working on the film also.
I think Carla's really, and Stacy, are really like innovators of this type of hairstyling, because a lot of the other hairdressers in our industry that I've spoken to, a lot of them, they said, well, I couldn't do that job. I didn't know, I don't know where to begin, you know? So I think it's new. It's so new. That seeing it in this scale, in this scope is, it's a beautiful gallery of what these two have done. Just with hair alone.
I mean, we had our, you know, platform that we were all putting images and things on. We did have meetings with Ruth Carter, and I mean, looking at her stuff, if you don't get inspired, you know, I don't understand, but she had so much stuff, fabrics and textures and drawings and all kinds of things. And then with Wesley's hair, you know, Carla showed me some things. I looked up a bunch of different images and things that had a tribal aesthetic to them. And I found that Amasunzun style, which is what he's wearing. It's East African, specifically from Rwanda. There's a tribe called the Tutsi tribe that back in the 1920s, they would wear these styles, and to date as well, not as much. And so I took those styles and created a look of my own with that style for Wesley. I thought his character could pull that off. And I had to start off with a drawing because, you know, I was seeing this in my mind, but I had to present it somehow. Eddie and Arsenio, you know, we saw them before. So, and they were from Zamunda. So those looks had to kind of stay the same. I changed them, brought them up to date. European and American kind of influenced, you know, styles on some of the people in Zamunda. Eddie and Arsenio had that flat top. He had more hair, you know, and to bring him up to date, but keeping that European influence, his hair had a little more texture to it, as if he maybe texturized it, but still had, you know, a lot of hair still on his head, gave him a little side part and kept him, you know, looking like royalty, Zamundan royalty. But yeah, I mean, the inspiration comes from places you wouldn't even imagine.
So each of you obviously worked in different spheres of the hair and makeup department and had different tasks to deal with. And I'm curious to hear from each of you what the biggest challenges were for you in this film, as well as your favorite looks to put together.
The biggest challenge, I mean, there was a few. The weather is one, you know, it's hot and humid. And, you know, when you're working with wigs and mic tube prosthetics and things like that, you're dealing with sweat, you're dealing with humidity, you're dealing with heat, you're dealing with all kinds of things. So that was a challenge. One challenge I haven't talked about is, you know, running between trailers. You know, you got Mike's base camp, you know, there's the main trailer base camp, and then you have Eddie's base camp, you know, and I'm literally running all over. And then it gets difficult when there's like one location where the base camps are really spread out. You have to get a ride to each one, you know, so things like that, and just keeping up with everything, preparation, being prepared, thinking ahead. You know, before we left, Carla shipped out, you know, like 50 cases of hair, you know, and I shipped out a bunch of cases of hair, just, you know, running things and being on top of your, you know, bringing your A game.
I think my challenges were working in a city that I'd never worked in, and working with a crew I wasn't familiar with, and I had to trust the process. And also the heat, you know, working on location, you're away from your family, you know, that's a challenge in itself, you know. And just, you know, working film hours, it's long hours, but with all of that, I love what I do. I wake up every morning happy to go to work and do what I do. It's a joy. I mean, there's challenges, but they're welcoming. You know, I love challenges. I get off on that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation any way you look at it. I mean, as far as my department is concerned, you know where I am when you see giant piles of boxes outside the trailer with you know each day. So the interesting thing is each day we need a new set of prosthetics that have to be glued on every actor. So each makeup probably, I think it consists of something like 15 to 20 pieces per makeup. And when you're dealing with multiple characters, you have preparation and boxes and things on delicate pieces designed and engineered to be sitting on these little forms. So when you open a box up, that contains literally like Eddie as Saul, Eddie as Randy Watson, you know, so you take them off, you trim all the excess off, you clean them, you prepare them, and there are so many boxes and there is so many things. So when you see a trailer that is loaded with empty boxes and stuff under the trailer, that's my trailer, you know. So and we had a prosthetic trailer and Eddie had his trailer. So I would jump back and forth from Eddie to Arsenio to Clint to all of these things, like popping back and forth. The challenges on the job were immense. I mean, just to pull off a highly detailed surgically precise makeup, emulating iconic makeups to begin with, it's like, you know, you better be on your game, and Eddie sees everything, and Eddie knows what a good makeup is. And Eddie has been in these makeups. Eddie has been in every kind of makeup possible. So if there's a mistake, he knows, he sees. So it's tough, it's difficult, but very enjoyable and very rewarding.
I think too, people need to understand that Stacy and I had no fittings before this. Like, I was making things just off of the script and didn't really know if these things were going to work out. So some things that I made for one character ended up on another character and it had to be revamped. So that was a huge challenge where we only got to some of the, like, we had 2 weeks of prep, but some of the actors we didn't see until a day before they were shooting, so it was a lot of Mike said, surgery and putting things together and just having an open mind and vision. And they continually talked about the budget, and we don't have money for hair, so all of these things we had to kind of make so they would kind of see where we were going. And there was a day on set when Bella walked out with her hair for the first time, and one of the producers came to me and goes, I get it now. And even though the budget wasn't extensive as other departments, they didn't push back as much.
And did each of you have favorite looks that made it into the film that you're either most proud of or just happen to like the aesthetic of the most that you want to shout out?
Which child is your favorite, Hilton? It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. I mean, all of it is built, and I think I could speak for everybody, with care and love, and each thing is as good as the next. You try your best, but out of that you get favorite things. You lean towards certain things. For me, I think it's Stahl, I think it's Randy Watson, and I think it's Baba and Arsenio. I mean, all of them I love, but those were probably the most challenging, and I got the most fun out of those.
I loved all the looks, to be honest. But what I think one of my proudest moments was Kiki when she came down the stairs and she had those earrings, and she was introduced to her bastard brother. I think that look right there, it was stunning, and the close-up they did on her was pleasing to me.
Yeah, my favorite looks in the movie is the hair that Carla had on Bopoto. That reveal with that big is amazing. Like, and it says so much, and it's bold, and then Bella, I love her hair, especially in the fight scene with the big ponytail and the cornrow braids in front, like, amazing. But for me, personally, out of the hair that I did, Wesley would have to be my favorite. And it partly has to do with never being really seen before, and the work and the research and everything that I put into it, and the execution and things like that. And then it came off wonderful. Like, it played well.
I would love to hear each of you speak a little bit, and you've touched on this already, but to the nature of shooting in Atlanta. And from our previous conversations, I remember hearing about some of the really great resources that were available there. So if any of you wanted to speak on that.
The resources are amazing. I have to tell a little story. So one day I don't even remember, it was something small. And I was like, okay, I got to go to the beauty supply out here because I ran out. I don't have that. And I asked someone, where's the beauty supply? And they said, oh, there's a chain of them. I forget the name, and I found one, there was one close, and I looked, and it was like, not only was there one close, but there was one like 5 doors down from that, and 5 doors down from that, and 5 doors down from that. And I was like, okay, great. And I called Carla. I said, hey, I'm going to run to the beauty supply. And I go to the beauty supply for, 1 or 2 things. And I walk in there, and this place was so huge that it was overwhelming. It was like literally walking into the biggest Costco's you could ever imagine, but it was for hair. And I was so overwhelmed that I said, you know what? I'm not even going to buy what I need to buy right now because I literally had like maybe 30 minutes. I needed to just run and go get it. I said, I'm coming back when I can come into this store and literally marinate and just walk around. And Atlanta is amazing for that. They have beauty supplies like I've never seen before, ever. I actually had to make a video of that store. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it was like Disneyland for me. Like I was like, it's a Kmart, but it's a beauty supply. And then they have them on every corner like a liquor store. It was crazy. And they're all making money. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I had no idea. But I was very happy about that because of the aesthetic we were going for. We were able to get all the things that I had purchased in LA ahead of time. I was able to duplicate it there. So I was so happy. It was probably the best place we could have shot was in Atlanta.
Anything to add, Mike? Or
Well, I really enjoyed working at Tyler Perry's studio. It's this gigantic, new, beautiful studio. And when we were doing the makeup on, I think it was Clarence, Tyler came in to see us. And Eddie just hears the door open. And then you hear a voice, and it's Tyler. And he says, hello, and this is amazing, and thanks for coming. And he asked Eddie if it would be okay to like name one of the buildings after him, which I thought was really cool. And when he left, Eddie said, man, did you feel that when he walked in? I just knew it was someone. His presence was big, you know? So he said, I didn't see who it was. I just felt the presence. And he came in and it was him, and they talked for a few minutes, and we were all just smiling and laughing. And I think it was really cool to be at that studio because it's just so perfectly designed. It's just really like an amazing place to film. And none of it is our home, but it felt like a home there. You know, it felt really comfortable to work there. And I had no complaints. I thought it was great to be in Atlanta.
So as our conversation nears the end, I just want to ask one final question, which would be what it was like that morning when each of you received the news of the Oscar nomination and what those moments were like. So.
Well, my reaction went viral because my daughter put it on Twitter and it had over 1 million looks. So it was crazy. I was in shock because I don't know why I didn't think we were going to get a nomination, but I was in shock. But at the same time, I felt so blessed. I felt so honored. And I was so happy that the images, especially because they were beautiful African-American images of royalty and culture, that they were identified and appreciated by the Academy. That meant more to me than anything, that those particular images were celebrated and nominated. And of course, with the amazing makeup that Mike did, it was just a combination of the right recipe at the right time. And I feel so blessed to work among these two amazing artists. They are the best of the best. And I just feel so honored to be a part of this trifecta.
Yeah, it was pretty shocking to me. I mean, I think, you know, I can speak for all of us here. You know, when we pick projects, you know, they're passion projects. There's a lot of elements also involved on, you know, as to why we pick projects. But I don't think that we pick them saying, oh, this could be a possible, you know, nomination or things like that. We pick things that we want to put our all into, and we literally put our all into while we're doing it. It's not like, oh yeah, well, let me make sure of this because we give 100%, period. So the nomination was like, you know, icing on the cake, you know, and it came later. Like we did our work and then we move on as artists. Like we're doing other things, we've done other projects. And then for this to come, you know, when we released the movie, we didn't come up in the Oscars last year. We came up this year and it was like, oh, okay. really? You know what I mean? And then that morning when it happened, it's like, it's just a shock. You know, you're not expecting it. You're not polling for it at the time. You're just going along, doing your work, doing these collaborative projects. And then this comes, and it's just such a blessing and, you know, a gift. And it speaks so much to the Academy for recognizing, you know, this film, this classic film, and, you know, with, you know, African Americans being, their hair being exemplified, and Mike's makeups are so amazing. It's just like Carla said, it's just the perfect equation, you know, perfect timing. And literally, I still want somebody to pinch me. It's like, is this real?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm so glad to work with these two. We're all friends, and that's the best part of it all. And we can you know, cross mingle departments, and it's like cool. It's like you're in a band, you know, and you know, you're just cross weaving each other, and everybody, Stacy and Carla, we're all like pretty hardcore. We're at the top of our game. We really have been here for a long time in this industry, and I think that for me, the influences that I had that brought me here, Rick Baker and many of the other artists in the industry and the amazing makeup people and hair people, I think it's just amazing to be considered, and you know, to win the award is absolutely amazing. It's like a dream come true. I mean, I had a picture of Rick Baker and Eddie Murphy on my wall, and it said Oscar winner. You know, right there, right behind my head. I saw that every day, you know, so I was constantly inspired. And I think the goal for me is to inspire more people and inspire more kids to come into this film industry and really try to work hard, because I never went to school. I never learned at an academy. I never did any of it. It's all based on heart and about dedication and pushing myself and looking at people as inspiration, looking at films as inspiration to continuously drive someone without a formal education in this industry to go and approach having a career. And I was in the middle of nowhere. I grew up in New York. I never knew a movie person. I never knew anybody. I'm in a suburb of New York, and I'm now in Hollywood, you know, and doing the most amazing stuff like my idol, Rick Baker, you know, and it's just an absolute honor to be nominated, and I'm just totally thrilled to work with these two ladies and everybody on the film, Eddie Murphy, Arsenio, and Craig Brewer. Everybody, it's just like a huge, like, wow, like I can't believe that I'm here. So,
Ooh, yeah. That sounds like a winning speech to me. Let's go.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time. We are rooting for you come Oscar night. It was such a great conversation. So thank you again, and have a good
Thank you, Hilton. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Hilton.
See you again.
Thank you.
Keep your fingers crossed.